Morning, everybody. So I got this question the other day about why would I write a book about a Catholic priest who was a serial killer using the confessional to find people who are beyond absolution. But first off, I grew up Catholic, and it's an interesting situation when you start going to confession. You're going to put in a box with this guy who you don't really know, but you're a kid, he's much bigger than you, very imposing. Tell him everything you've done wrong. Just volunteer that information, right? Yeah, so it's a bit scary of a process on occasion. At least it was back then. And, that guy's going to dole out your punishment. So then you start thinking about these things. You start thinking about what happens if, all that kind of stuff. And as I got older, I kind of put myself in the position of the priest. And it's like, okay, what happens if you kind of get pissed off at the people doing this and your level of confession goes up? And then when you're in church, you learn about this thing like an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You go back and forth on all kinds of, hey, here's how the Old Testament punishment would go. And it leads itself to sort of this question of what happens if the world gets to a point where consequences are no longer a real thing. We can do anything we want. We can kind of get away with it all. Kind of sounds like the world we live in, at least for some people. So, the book sort of was born out of that idea. Now, is there going to be a sequel? I wrote The Diocese Dilemma a while ago. Yeah, I am actually deep in work on a sequel to it because the world hadn't gotten any cleaner. And the idea behind Frank was, hey, if you can actually make punishments fit crimes, maybe people will stop doing the crime, right? And it didn't quite work. I mean, it worked out. Didn't quite work out for some criminals, and I'm not apologizing at all for what I did to the child molester, and I'm really not apologizing for what I did for some people in the second one just yet. But hey, Diocese Dilemma, it's out there. There will be a Diocese Dilemma 2. See how soon. But I thought it was a lot of fun to write, and that's why I wound up with serial killers on the brain. And PSA, if you are single and you're actually dating someone, probably want to tell them you wrote a book about a serial killer early on. People tend to frown on finding that out on their own, especially after what I did to some of the people in the book. Everybody have a good day.